I am Shusara Kumara. Welcome to Satsang. You are beginningless. You are endless. You are divine.
Good evening, everyone. This is Shusara, and welcome to Satsang. I'm here with Pielayan, Linda, and Tim, and we welcome you to another evening with us. Go ahead and take a nice deep breath. Get yourself centered. Call yourself forward. Mother, Father, God that I am, through the great central sun hierarchy, through the office of the Christ, through the order of Melchizedek, I call upon Archangel Michael to bring the sapphire blue ray. Cut away, cut away, cut away anything in all of our four lower vehicles not emanating directly from our I Am presence. I now call on Archangel Zachiel, keeper of the violet flame. Blaze, blaze, blaze the violet flame through all of our four lower bodies. Transmute, transmute, transmute all the psychic debris Michael has cut free. I now bring forth the invincible ring pass knot and the mirror blue light of invisibility to completely surround each of us. And I call forth a shaft of pure Christ light to surround each one of us. And I ask that they be brought to the center of the earth, where I call on Archangel Gabriel to seal them. And I ask that the legions of Michael completely surround each tube of light. And now I ask that our vibrations be raised high above the psychic and astral worlds to the highest realm of illumined truth we each can attain at this time. And now, Mother, Father, God, we place ourselves in service to you and to humanity. Pielayan and I place ourselves in service to all of you tonight. We ask that only that which is direct from you be permitted into our perceptions, and that all else of the lower mind be kept out. And we ask that only that which is direct from you be permitted through us. And because we have asked this, we consider it so. So be it. Beautiful. All right. Why don't you come on back? And we'll get started. We just came off of a quite powerful satsang session here in Charlotte. And it's always a trick navigating between one and the other. So we shall see what happens this evening. Pielayan, do we have anything in particular that we need to come back to from last week?
We do not.
Nothing?
Not a thing.
What did I talk about last week?
Want me to recap?
Well, no, not if we don't need to. Let's see. If I'm trying to, it's funny because for those listening, this is an interesting thing because people in the world would see me as a teacher because I can sit and talk for days about all kinds of things that, spiritual things. But that's not what I'm here to do. And so when we have physical satsang, here in Charlotte, I generally, I mean, sometimes I have a real sense of something I absolutely need to bring forward. And so I can sit and talk and, we kind of start there. But usually I open it up right to the group right from the beginning, like who has a question, because I allow the questions to really guide the program. And so it's a little different here, when sometimes it seems like we just have things that hang over from one program to the next that I need to go back and talk about again. But then when we don't, I'm sitting here going, oh, so what are we going to talk about today? But the good thing is that I do have PLE in here, and I have Linda and Tim with me tonight as well too. So I'm sure that between the three of them, someone can ask me something that will give me some guidance on what I'm supposed to speak about tonight. So does anybody have anything in particular to bring forward? Linda, did you ever remember what it was that you had some question earlier that you couldn't remember? Did it ever come back to you?
Not exactly. But it, and I'd have to think about it for a minute for it to form into a real question.
Okay. All right. So Linda's a little verbally challenged right now. And as it comes to you, you come sit in the hot seat, and I have a little chair set up here so she can be at the mic. But I would love to field whatever question that is that does come. So the session we just had was actually quite strong. It was beautiful. And we ended the session back where we seem to come to almost every session now, which is how you live in the world, right? And I maybe I want to talk about that now because it's just so important. And the part of me that says you sound like a broken record, it's true. I keep saying this over and over, but there's some reason. So I think back to, the years, the 8 years that I've been with my guide, and think about how many times I heard her say certain things to me, such as, you are beginningless, endless, formless, single, being, knowledge, bliss. I've probably heard her say that 400 times, right? And there's a reason for it, because, even though the totality of your consciousness does receive the words and the energy behind them every time, it's like your conscious awareness can only catch a certain thing. So depending on where you're at in your own evolution, the meaning of what you're hearing changes, right? So that tells me that for as much as I feel like I keep repeating myself, there's a reason for it. And I saw it very strongly tonight. I will say, just as a precursor, I was just thinking about this because we have people who just left our office here, and now they may be listening to the radio program, and hopefully they are. But I did want to mention here, in case you don't spend a lot of time kind of on BBS in general, I believe is the BBS mobile app up now too, so that you can actually get it on your cell phone?
It sure is. It's for the cell phone, and I would love for them to get it for the tablet too. Hint, hint, Don and Doug.
Oh, Don, you're listening. We know you are. Yeah, so that is a cool thing. So, if you have cell phone, we'll travel and you can get the mobile app for BBS. And so you can tune into us anytime. You don't have to be home. You can just kind of go sit in your car someplace and listen to the program. Okay, so that being said, I was seeing tonight very clearly that for as much as people hear this message, it's still, there's a component to it that doesn't want to sink in with people. There's a component to spiritual work, I think, that the seeker in general, the one who really is still almost paralyzed by the deeper fears, but wants to be a seeker, that seeker, there's a component to it where I think they have themselves convinced that it's all about just kind of doing the studying or kind of coming and listening at satsang. So maybe they're addicted to, listening to Muji on YouTube or Gangaji or something like that, right? And like they spend all their time doing that. But then there's no application in the real world. Real being a very, off the cuff kind of way to say that, because this isn't real. However, it is your experience right now. And there's there's a problem with that. Because and this is what I was saying to this group we had tonight, that, moving into deeper and deeper levels of mastery from this place it just absolutely requires that you become very conscious in how you live your physical life. So think of it this way, that, from the time of birth up until whenever you had your initial awakening, you functioned in an unconscious state in the world. Now, people will be like, well, that's not true because I'm aware of everything that happened. That's not what I mean. What I mean is the program was the thing that was running. Okay? It was the program of the personality, all of the beliefs that sit there, all the attachments, all the desires, like all of that stuff. That's what ran the life. It wasn't conscious. One can't function consciously until the majority of all of that gets dissolved out. Because the attachment to all of that keeps one from functioning consciously. It will keep one in a reactive place. You understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So if you are bound to your attachments in the world, whatever that is, the attachment alone will ensure that when a situation arises, you will function from a reactive place rather than an objective place that is capable of taking right action in the moment, whatever that may be, because of the attachment. When the attachment's no longer there, one can be objective, right? And then function from a very different place, because it's a very clear place when there's no attachment. Okay? Because I'm not attached to either outcome. I'm not attached to what sat behind them. Like, I can see it clearly, the whole thing. And now from this space, I can actually make a decision to move forward, make a choice that is based in what is the highest good of all concerned versus my own sense of what I need or what I want, right? And that would be the program of the personal self. So you can have a seeker who can come to satsang every week and sit and listen and, go through the mental motions of, wrestling with the concepts that come forward, the concept of dissolution and the concept, like all of it, because it's all conceptual, right? Remember, it's not the words that are actually doing anything here. It's just humoring the monkey mind. Yeah. So they come and they do all that stuff, but then when it comes to how they live their lives, they still live from an unconscious state. And my question for you is, what's the point? I mean, what's the point? If you're going to sign up, then do it, right? If you're going to talk the talk, you have to be willing to walk the walk. People love to, use that saying for all kinds of things, but not no one. Very few people are actually willing to do it, to talk it and walk it. And you talk it and walk it long enough, you don't need to talk it anymore because you're just going to walk it, right? And those are the people in the world that we've always looked up to because they walk it. It's not about them spouting off words, yeah? You can have someone in a position of leadership, even for a whole country, spout off all kinds of beautiful words. But what's going to show you where they're really functioning from? Their actions, right? Same thing with all of you in your daily lives and the people that you have your relationship with. You can use all kind of language. You can tell people you love them every day, but what do your actions show them? Right? You can say, "Oh, I love you so much. I love you to the moon and back," right? But if your actions show that your love for them is conditional based on them agreeing with your program and functioning from the place that you want them to function from, then do you really love them? And this is the thing. We have ourselves convinced in this world that the words mean something. And in reality, the words don't mean jack. And that's the reality of it. Now, when the energy is there supporting the words, behind the words are beautiful, right? When we know we can trust the words. But the reality is that the vast majority of the time, whatever it is people are saying really can't be trusted, can it? Really. Linda's looking at me like, oh, this is disturbing.
You know, it's actually stirring.
Come, sit.
Well, it's very much stirring what I've been looking at this week. Earlier this week, I had something that hit me right before coming to our global meditation, and I was in a space that I don't like being in, obviously. So at that point, it wasn't really a good time to look at it. So I kept, trying to just let the energy flow and experience the anger and sadness that I was feeling as a result of this point of communication that took place over something that, again, is one of those things that keeps being brought back to me. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I know it, and I know it very well. And I have been looking at it, and I have been dealing with it. And so as time has gone by the last couple of days, and I have continued to look at it and just pick it apart and look at what is my role functioning from the level that I should be functioning from. How do I look at this exactly to know why I reacted the way that I did? Was it just a burst of sad anger as a result of still being confused over, did I say the right thing? Did I take right action when I should have, or should I have waited? And why did I take personally what was said to me as a result of what I thought was taking right action? And so as I try to walk my talk every day in the world, and something comes and hits me, and it says, oh, this is something you need to look at, because I see it very clearly now, because the emotional response is just that it says, oh, stop, look at this. And there I was like, okay, now what do I do? How am I supposed to experience this now? And how do I go to dissolve it so that, or is this one of those things that's just going to keep coming up? I mean, I know where I'm going with it. I know exactly where it's going. And maybe that in itself will resolve. But I guess I still, it's not so much that I fear it. I don't believe it. I don't believe that even what I'm intending to do is going to resolve what I'm experiencing or what I'm witnessing.
And can I just ask, the experience that you continue to have, it involves another person, at least one other person, correct? It's not just within your own.
Right, yes, one other person.
Okay. Okay. So here's the thing. We have to recognize first and foremost that other person has free will, right? So even if the work was done in its entirety within you, all right, all karmic binds are released, it's just done. It doesn't mean that the other person is going to stop doing what they're doing.
Right.
It could, right? Because when you change, the world changes. It could. Something could shift there. They could come into a greater level of awareness because you did, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. And this is a good question, because this is a question that anyone at the level of work that you have done would ask. It's the okay. So I have been very conscious of walking my understandings in the world. I'm doing my very best, but I still see where I trip up. And so when I do trip up, I look at it, and then I don't know quite what you do from there, right? And that's the big question. Okay. So the most important point to make there is that in the looking, be very conscious that in the looking is purely objective. Because what wants to happen most of the time, and it's another way for the mind to very subtly get its grip in there again, is in the looking, when we see we've fallen short, there's a sense that, oh, I screwed up, or I should have known better, or, oh, what did you do wrong this time? And even that is identified, right? And the point, remember, wasn't to change it. The point was to see through it. So ultimately, would it really matter if one, quote unquote, fell short? Is there any way to know if the falling short wasn't necessary because the experience needed to be had on the other side? Because literally what can happen is you can be used as, how do I say this? I mean, there are times when you can literally be like overshadowed by a master or an archangel. They can come in and literally kind of use you to move through you to show someone what they need to see. And if you've had the experience, you know it, because it's very unique. Because you literally will, at the end of it, be like, what just happened? Like I was so detached from that whole thing. Like I literally had that experience with my son. One day, I think he was in his room and he was on his computer or something, and I walked in and something happened and it triggered him, right? And so I functioned in the mom role, right? And gave him the what for. And at the end of it, he's all upset, and I walked away just completely clear because I literally was like, wow, like whatever that was, that definitely was not my doing, and who am I to question that? Right. Because that's exactly the experience of it. It wasn't, oh my gosh, I just failed him. Oh, I just failed myself. Right. It's so important that we don't judge ourselves, because you will recognize that in this conscious spiritual walk, there are times where you will know better and you'll still do it. Right. And the really important thing is that we don't judge ourselves for those moments, because even those moments are perfect just the way they are. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't look and see the point of where it did fall short, what happened there. A certain word came, and that word seemed to trigger an emotional state that then ran away with itself, right?
Within person like myself.
Sure, exactly. And that can happen. And so then, yes, you can look deeper and go, oh, what is it about that word? And maybe you track it back. Oh my gosh, like I remember my father used to say that to me. And that one word, when he used to say it, I knew what that meant. And so it triggered this whole, victim state in me. Great. So you see it, right? And now you're aware of it. And now you move forward from a different place. But even if you recognize that you're not seeing anything in particular, right? The fact is that you remained conscious throughout the vast majority of the experience. And that is an incredible victory. It's the one thing. It's like I'm a horrible cheerleader, and I never wanted to be a cheerleader. Cheerleaders used to really get on my nerves when I was a teenager. Because I was the one out playing sports. But I still to this day, like, that's the one thing that as a guide, I don't give praise easily. And so I need to remind myself every now and again to tell people you're doing great. I mean, the fact that you stayed conscious throughout, let's say, 80% of the entire situation is a huge victory. Because if you look at the state that you lived in 5 years ago, you were completely unconscious 99.9% of the time. And now you're remaining conscious 80% of the time. I mean, look at that. That's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. But again, the biggest thing is to not sit in judgment toward ourselves. Remember, it's like my understanding is literally your soul it pulls itself away when you're in judgment of yourself, because that's it's a resonance that it just does not have any affinity toward at all.
So even the question that I have looked at throughout this process of, is she reflecting something of me that I need to be looking at and judging that? Because in that moment I did judge.
Okay. So let's keep this in mind. She is you.
Right.
So is she reflecting something in you? Well, of course, because that's exactly what she is. She's your projection. She's your projection. But she's not, and here's the catch. She's not your projection, right? She's the projection of the single lower mind that you're identified with. Oh, she just got up and walked away. I lost one. Okay, let's sit with that for a second. For those of you listening, let's sit with this for a second. It's important. The entire external world that you experience is the projection of your consciousness. It's the projection of a fallen consciousness. Fallen consciousness is identified with the lower mind. Therefore, from a very logical place, this external reality is the projection of that fallen lower mind, which is singular. So to say it's your projection, is it accurate? Yes and no. It depends on where you're viewing it from. It's the projection of the lower mind. Is she you? Yes, but only in the sense that right now the lower mind is you. Because that is your experience. That's where consciousness is trapped. But is she you? No. But neither are you. In highest truth. Right? So is she bringing something to you that you need to see? Well, sure. But only from the respect that it's ego, or the lower mind, reflecting something and presenting itself in its fallen state to the divine, who can see it clearly, right? That's the walk of mastery here. That you hold the space of the divine to be the Christ walking on the planet means that you view the world from the space of illumination without identifying with the space of polarization. You understand? That is the challenge, and that's what you're all being guided to do, is to move into greater levels of mastery so that more of the time you can stand outside of the veils, right? In a dissolved state where the Christ is present, and the Christ is the one taking its action, taking right action, seeing objectively. So let's just 1 second, Tim. So let's just one more thing with the story, with the person who was involved with you. Is it true that it could be looked at concerning what she's bringing that needs to be seen? Yes. And no. The no is because within the work of seeing what it is she's bringing that needs to be seen, what has to exist in order for that to be true? Attachment to the story, exactly. Belief in the story itself, because the story says, well, consciously I'm holding this side and unconsciously I can't see it, and here she is and she's presenting it to me, so that's my unconscious mind, and I need to see that in order to see through the whole thing, right? Now remember, that's true, but only up until the point where it isn't. And there is a line there. Because at some point, you've done enough of it. You see? At some point, you've already picked it apart enough. At some point, you've seen everything there is to be seen. At some point, you have the primal imprint so much in your consciousness that you see it everywhere you go. And at some point, you see everyone in the world as you. You can't not see yourself everywhere. And then at some point, you can't not see everyone as God. And then at some point, the question about, is she bringing something to me to be seen, just falls away altogether because it just doesn't matter. Because it's just not real. See? And so your challenge, based on the level of work that you've done, is to move into that space. Yeah? Now, does it mean that at this point there's no reason to ever go back and look? No, because maybe there are some strands that are still sitting there. And a little more uncovering can be done. Sure, absolutely. Right? But the reality is that even when those things want to pull, right? Remember, go back to the Buddha and the Bodhi tree. It's always back to that. It's the demons, the demons, the demons. What are they? The demons are the images themselves that pop in, right? It's the presentation of something in the external world that seems to be in opposition. All of them. And you, on the other hand, can be the single point of focus, the still point in the chaos. Remember, I said that earlier tonight. The still point, right? And you can witness it all. And it wouldn't matter where this physical form and the words coming out of the physical form, it wouldn't matter what they did because you aren't that. And when that point has been attained, you'll know it. Because when something transpires, there's nothing there attached to it anymore. Not anymore. It allows it to be what it is. And in a moment, it could be bliss. And in a moment, it could be anger. It could be tears. It could be anything. Right? But who is it that attaches to the story behind the bliss or the tears or the anger? Right? Tim?
Kind of wanted to go back to something you were saying to her, which is everything in our perception is a projection of our mind. And so you kind of answered it anyway when you were talking. So what I was thinking is if everything is a projection of our mind, then on one level, I took that to mean that whatever unconscious beliefs I'm holding, they're being presented. I see that in other people because that's what I'm holding, so that's what I'm seeing. But then the other level I was thinking is beyond that, there is like the Christ in these other people as well. And so I guess my question was, I thought it was true, but I guess I just wanted to just ask. That's what I was thinking.
So what is the actual question?
So, like when you're saying that everything I see is a projection of my mind, is it that what I perceive is just what I'm holding within me, and so that's what I see? But like a tree is really a tree, or that person is really a person walking around. That make any sense?
Are you asking me if a tree is really a tree?
Well, if I hear your question, that everything is my perception is what I project.
Mm-hmm. You can't hear him. I'm sorry.
Am I just projecting a tree, or is that tree actually there?
Ah. Yes, and where would it be?
Where would the tree be? This is like the tree falls in the wood kind of thing.
Well, indeed, because if space and time are both creations of mind, where does the tree exist anyway?
I don't know.
Well, let's look at it. Sit there for a second. Where does it exist?
Where does
any of it exist?
Well, you could say your mind, But then I guess you have to go a deeper level and say, well, I didn't know this tree was here 5 minutes ago, but now I see the tree. And so,
And who's to say it was there 5 minutes ago?
because there's like stuff on the, like leaves maybe on the ground from the tree and everything.
Okay, so now we're getting to the lesson of cause and effect. Beautiful. Beautiful. Because cause and effect are creations of the lower mind as well.
So you're saying it could have just very well been that there was nothing there before. And then just all of a sudden there's leaves on the ground and everything, and in the space of a moment that's just the way it was.
Yeah, so quantum physics will tell you, right, that anything appears in multiple outpicturings until the observer observes it. That any given thing actually shows up kind of all over the place because it has no set point in time until it's observed. Until it's observed. So it is the observer that is determining the point of space and time for everything that you are experiencing. And the observation comes from the state of consciousness that's being held. Yeah? Why is it that a master in the East can levitate? But if I ask you, okay, Tim, I want you to sit and concentrate really hard and levitate, you could try really hard, but it's not going to happen, right? Because the way you function within the quote unquote level of reality you're sitting in is based on the state of consciousness. The yogi in the East has such a heightened state of consciousness that the laws of physics don't apply anymore. They just don't apply. And there are many, many, many stories out there of monks who would walk into a room where the yogi was meditating, unbeknownst to them, and literally would walk in and see them levitating in the air, or walk in and see them, better yet, levitating and having no legs whatsoever, because their legs, the frequency of them has reached a point where the physical eye can't even see it anymore. There's all kinds of stories about that, right? And of course, people just want to say, "Oh, well, that's not real." It is real. It is real. And you've seen digital cameras are really amazing at picking up shifts in energy, right? So you've seen, of course, pictures of lots of orbs and stuff that you see through digital cameras. And James Gilliland over at ESETI has some really beautiful pictures of them being in session doing the work that they do out there. And literally you can see through the pictures the lower bodies morphing in and out of form. Because literally they're going into such a dissolved state that the digital camera is able to catch what's going on. And you'll see it. It's all like warped, and, people would be like translucent. You can see through them. And then people always want to say, oh, that's just there was a problem with the camera and this, blah, blah, all that crap. No. That's real. It's real. Yeah. So the way you perceive the world is truly based on the state of consciousness of the observer that's observing it. It happens in in the physical world and in your internal world. So how you're perceiving the world from an internal place is not any different. It is the same thing. Remember, the physical world is just an outpicturing of the internal world anyway, right? There's the part that you're holding to be true, so you're very aware of all that internally. You tell yourself the story all the time, and you wrestle back and forth with if it's right or wrong and all that stuff. But then everything outside of that, you've pushed into the unconscious, and so all of that comes forward into the external world. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And it's just that your experience will be more that you will begin to witness the shifting in your internal world before you witness it in the external world. Does that make sense? You'll start to see that your perception internally shifts. So whereas you used to be very judgmental and say you'd be driving down the street and you'd drive by someone, a vagrant on the side of the road, and it used to be that there was this immediate judgment that would come. Oh, loser, you don't want to work, but like whatever it is, okay? And then through you looking at the judgment, looking at the beliefs that judgment reinforces, right? Seeing what those beliefs are made out of, seeing where you learned them, looking to see what's really going on there, and you pick that all apart. Then you wake up one day and you recognize that you just drove by a vagrant and you had nothing but love for him. For whatever reason. I don't know why you're walking that path. You're walking the path because whatever it was in your evolution, it's led you to that point, and it's perfect for you. But at the same time, you have compassion for the person who's experiencing suffering in the world. Right? So you get to witness that first before you're going to witness the experience that, oh, that tree wasn't there until I looked at it. But that's the reality of it. Right now, as we sit in this office, this is the only thing that exists for us right now. That's it. And anything else that we think exists only exists where? That's right. In the mind, because it creates a picture. So anything else in the world that we think exists, the only way we can experience it right now is through a picture. Right? The picture that we pull up. So if you say home, you see a picture. If you say China, you see a picture. If you say Earth, you see a picture. And that's where it exists. It's just an internal picture. Well, how do you know that's real? Yeah. But the internal picture helps you as you convince yourself over and over and over again that it is real. And so your projection moving forward is that will be real. So your projection, and this is a really good exercise. I would highly recommend this for anybody to do. It's a beautiful exercise. If you stand on one side of a closed door, right, and you put your hand on the door, if you can slow it down enough, and this is always the challenge, right, because the mind moves so fast, you don't witness everything that's going on there. You have to slow it way down. If you can slow it down, you'll recognize that there's a point in the movement toward the door handle. There's some point in there where the mind will automatically project an image of what is going to be on the other side of the door. And so what did it just create? It just created the expectation, right? And it just created what you will perceive on the other side of the door. So a master in the illumined worlds could walk up on a door, and what would be on the other side of the door? Maybe. Whatever projects would be on the other side of the door. Would make travel really easy, wouldn't it? Open a door and you're at the beach. Open a door, you're on another planet. Right? Why not? If it's all a projection of consciousness anyway, who says you have to move through it? Remember me talking at, what was that? I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago? Telling everybody, get in the space where you see yourself as the still point, and that quote unquote space is moving through you, not you moving through it. You remember that? There's very profound truth in that. I know people think that kind of thing's really trippy. Well, it should feel kind of trippy because it's completely outside of the paradigm that you live in, because you think space is real. You think there's a space between you and me, right? You think that there's all kinds of space out there. This void, this nothingness, We call it air, but we think of it as nothing. It's not nothing. There is no nothing. It's all one big thing, just one thing. Linda's, I'm losing her. She's gonna pop. But if you could see the energy in the room, right, with your visual sight, you would see there's no space between anything. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. So the whole, what is it, the butterfly effect, that says that we're all connected. It truly is true. There's nothing that separates anything. And as I stand here and move my hands, it's impacting each one of you because it's sending a ripple through the energy field that's very real, very palpable, and you can't not feel it. Now you aren't aware of it, right? Because your senses are so dulled. And the five physical senses can't sense that. They're not meant to. Because the reality is that if you could truly see what's going on here, it would be so overwhelming that, it's like you would just melt down completely or pop. Yeah, you would pop. I mean, just if you could see just the frequency fields from microwaves and cell phones and just all of that stuff, the pulsations that those are sending out, how they're moving through everything, that right there would be completely overwhelming. You wouldn't be able to handle it. It'd be so confusing, you wouldn't be able to handle it. So the senses, bring everything into the space where it makes it kind of easier to live in. But it doesn't mean that that's all there is. There's so much more going on, and you only experience a little teeny fraction of what actually is going on. And it is being determined by the point of perception, and the point of perception is based on the state of consciousness, right? Yeah. You've been really quiet tonight. You have anything to say?
No, this is really good stuff that we're all talking about. Well, you guys, because I'm quiet. But no, this is really cool.
Okay, so back to where we started, which was concerning kind of, walking your walk, which needs to mirror the talk that you're talking, right? And how important it is. Because so stop me if I already said this on the radio program, because I know I said it to the group, but I can't track if I did. In the illumined worlds, moving into greater and greater levels of mastery is just a different experience. When one knows themselves to be God, right, and no sense of anything polarized exists, it's just different, right? Because there's nothing that says that I'm not good enough. There's nothing that says I can't master that. There's nothing that says, oh, this is going to take me a long time. There's that stuff just doesn't exist. So here in the world of polarization, it's like this is the place where you can actually propel yourself, capital S, into much greater levels of mastery. Because if you master it here, it doesn't get any more challenging than mastering consciousness here because of all the opposition. Yeah? There's no opposition outside of here. It doesn't exist. So to walk your spiritual walk here is like, and this is the part where I do tell people, you have to give yourself credit. I mean, just the fact that you could sit in meditation and start to experience your inner awareness is a major thing. People don't take it seriously enough when I say that. I think oh, it's not that big of a deal. No, it's a huge deal. It's huge. Because you have so much opposition against you. You have the opposition of the microwaves in your house. You have the opposition of any kind of electrical signal that's being sent out that messes with your pineal gland. You've got all of that opposition going on. You have all the opposition of the collective consciousness on the planet, not to mention what's going on collectively in the area in which you live. And if you live in an area like Charlotte, which is a banking center, I promise you have a lot of opposition just from the consciousness that sits in the area. This isn't Sedona, right? It's very different meditating in Sedona than it is meditating in Charlotte. Then you have the opposition of all of the different energy fields in your own home. So are you married, or do you have a significant other? Do you have children who live in your home with you? And now you're sitting in their energy fields as well when you go into meditation, right? And you have to move through that. And you have that pulling at you. Because remember, there's no separation. You're going to feel it. And then you've got the neighbor factor. So do you live in an apartment complex where you have people above you and below you and on either side of you? And you have all of their energy fields that you're sitting in, right? So, Pielian, how many energy fields do you think you're sitting in when you go into meditation at home?
Meditation at home?
Yeah.
Mine, the kids, Mark, the people downstairs, the people next door, because of course I live in an apartment complex.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Not to mention, I mean, imagine how many electrical appliances are hooked up in that apartment complex, and they're all sending out there all their all their signals, right? And so she's dealing with that too. So, think of it this way: to go into people get so frustrated because like they go into meditation and they don't like pop into the illumined worlds where they literally physically feel like they're someplace else. That's not something that happens overnight. It takes an extremely, extremely high vibratory rate to move into that state of consciousness. Just to get to a state where the mind clears is a major accomplishment. Major, major accomplishment. It means that the point of awareness has detached itself from the collective at that point. Thought isn't present anymore. Where does thought exist? In the mind, the lower mind, right? And so when that's not present, there's no lower mind there, is there? That's a very dissolved state to be in, right? And so just to get to that point where even just the first couple times that you witness that, and it's kind of shocking when you do. I remember witnessing that the first time. I remember experiencing it like a how do I say it? Being in the state where all of a sudden everything just stopped, and it was like a force in and of itself, almost like this, like that's how I felt it. Just that moment of, and then of course mind kicked in. I'm like, oh my God, what was that? Oh, detachment gone, right? But there it was. And so that is a huge thing. So for those of you listening at home, cut yourselves a little slack. This is not easy work. This is not easy work. You have so much functioning, against you. Think of it this way. This entire reality is the polar opposite of God itself. If it's even possible. Think of it that way. This is the exact opposite of your nature. And so to move into a space of experiencing your nature within the experience of the exact opposite of it is an amazing and beautiful accomplishment. So when you get down on yourselves, we come back to Linda's story about falling short in conversation with someone. Take the time to pat yourself on the back. Look back at what you've done. Look back at where you were 2 years ago. See how you functioned then. See how you function now. Stop judging yourself and feeling like you've done something wrong, and let's start looking at what we've done right. Wow, what a shift. Beautiful, right? And if you've done that much, imagine how much more you can do, right? And it's common to feel like you've plateaued out, right? It's okay. Remember, your plateau now is, a huge amount greater than what your plateau was 2 years ago. So don't get down on yourselves when you feel like you've plateaued. I don't have any new beautiful experiences going on. It's all just the same old stuff. No, your same old stuff is like beyond the average person's same old stuff. If you were to drop down into their frequency, boy, would you feel it. Okay? You have to remember that. Every time you bump up, you feel it initially. You'll feel the experience of it. You feel the shift. But then you plateau out in that because you got to get comfortable there. That becomes your new norm, yeah? And then when that level is mastered, it's time for the next level of initiation, and it'll come. And when you've mastered that, you'll bump again, right? And this is what we keep doing. It steps up, just steps up. Yeah. One day at a time. Okay. We ready? Okay. So we're going to go into meditation now. And this is I picked a really nice one for tonight because it's just a beautiful, angelic kind of song. So let's sit with the angels for the next 4 minutes and join us again next week, Thursday night, 9 o'clock on BBS Internet Radio for Satsang. We love you so much. Thank you. Good night.
time.